But Tony in Richmond, Virginia, listening on Sirius, apparently you want to promote this Republican meme that this was the Democrats' dirty work that unseated Eric Cantor. I wish it was true, Tony. What's your case? Build your case.
I think you ought to at least consider the option, because I'm in Richmond, and there was a huge grassroots movement to unseat Cantor. He is so disliked.
But that was largely within the Republican Party. I mean, our video guy, Jim, lives in this district, lives in Cantor's district, gets all this. He's the one who keeps bringing in the flyers and stuff. I mean, we're not seeing any evidence of Democrats being organized around this. I mean, Dave Bratt.
Oh, it was though. It was done very grassroots, kind of stealthily under the radar. Listen, we just wanted to get rid of Cantor.
I mean, David Bratt. Here's David Bratt's. I've got his flyer right in front of me, and it says, defund Obamacare. Dave Bratt's in favor of it. Eric Cantor voted against defunding Obamacare. Oppose all amnesty. Dave Bratt's in favor of it. Cantor voted against opposing amnesty. Lower the national debt. Dave Bratt's in favor of it. Eric Cantor voted against it. Oppose insider trading. Dave Bratt's in favor of it. Cantor voted against it. And they've got the footnotes for each one of these things. End corporate welfare. Dave Bratt's in favor of it. Eric Cantor's against it. And they're going to be pretty shocked when businesses start closing in the 7th District of Virginia, because some of that corporate welfare was the pork that Eric Cantor brought home to his district. But in any case, back to you, Tony.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. This was less about a vote for Republicans and more about getting rid of Cantor.
On the part of Republicans?
On part of the Democrats. I mean, this was an opportunity, because this was an open primary. Democrats could vote too, whether you agree with that or not. I tend to agree with you about that, but it is the way it is. What it is. So
yeah.
What a lot of people did was come out and skew the numbers, because the Republicans were not going to go out and vote because they thought Cantor had it in the bag.
Right.
So
so
you're a lot of Democrats.
You're making my point. Although you're open to the possibility that Democrats voting in the open primary might have been the decisive majority. Is that what you're saying?
They might have been, yes, sir.
Okay. I think with a 10-point margin, that's pretty unlikely. I won't completely discount it. I mean, there might have been, the old joke is, Will Rogers, the famous Native American humorist, once said, I don't belong to an organized political party, I'm a Democrat. I mean, getting Democrats to do anything is like herding cats, whereas Republicans tend to, yes, sir, we'll do it. But if there was an organized Democratic movement, and you have any evidence of that at all, please call back and share it with us. I would love to know about it. Tony, thanks for the call. Morris in Long Beach, California, listening on KPFK. Hey, Morris, what's up?
Oh, Professor, I'm still trying to get over my shock. I truly, truly am. How $200,000 took out the top man in the party.
But see, that's the thing. It wasn't $200,000. The Koch brothers put $22 million into right-wing talk show hosts, including Laura Ingraham and Mark Levin. And Mark Levin and Laura Ingraham have spent the last couple of weeks preaching for Dave Bratt and trashing Eric Cantor. So, Eric Cantor spent $5 million. I think the Koch brothers might have spent more than that. They just spent it in a way that wasn't visible.
Oh, I feel better now. Thank you, because that definitely makes a big, big difference. Because I was just looking at what this documented as campaign financing, $200,000 versus $2.5 million. But if you take a look at this, you know what?
It's $4.5 million.
Grassroots is what you see here. And it can work for the right, it can work for the left, it can work for anyone. Grassroots. And I know that Ralph Nader is going to be very excited this weekend, because he wrote a book called Unstoppable, where people on the extreme left and people on the extreme right can come together on certain things, like everybody needs water, wants good drinking water. But this was an example of a grassroots effort, and it didn't take a whole lot to do it. And it reminds me again of what Ralph Nader says. It doesn't take a lot of us. It just takes a few of us with a commitment, and we can make a change. Yeah. And on another quick note, Professor, be sure to listen to Amy Goodman's Democracy Now!, a debate between Reed Brody of human rights groups and King Bolt. It's going to blow your mind. You talk about excellent articulation and shocking information. You got to listen to it.
Okay, I'll check it out. Morris, thanks a lot for the call. This from the Washington Post today, where they're talking about this, the Republicans coming out and saying, well, Eric Cantor lost because Democrats crossed over in an open primary. They say, and I quote, this is by Scott Clement, he says, while Republican primary turnout spiked by 28% over 2012, so I was wrong. I said it was lower than 2012. It was actually up 28%. According to the State Board of Elections, Cantor received 8,500 fewer votes this year than he did in the 2012 Republican primary, a drop that was larger than Bratt's 7,200 vote margin of victory. Regardless of how many Democrats turned out to oppose Cantor, Bratt still would have won had he maintained, Cantor still would have prevailed had he maintained the same level of support as in his 2012 election. So if Cantor had just gotten the exact same number of voters to show up for him in 2012 that he did in 2012 to show up for him last night, he would have beat Dave Bratt. So the Cantor voters stayed away. That's what, according to the Washington Post, it says, in fact, there's an interesting chart here that goes county by county. If Democrats had showed up in large numbers to vote against Cantor, turnout should have spiked highest from 2012 in Democratic-leaning areas, with Cantor seeing an especially large drop-off in support. In fact, turnout rose slightly more in counties that voted more heavily for Mitt Romney in the 2012 presidential election. So this was clearly Republicans showing up to say, we're mad as hell and we don't want Eric Cantor anymore. Now, why were they mad as hell and didn't want Eric Cantor? According to Laura Ingraham and Mark Levin, right-wing radio talk show hosts who are among that group that has taken over $22 million from the Koch brothers, they're the reason. But the media mainstream narrative, and Dave Bratt, wouldn't even be who he is if John Allison, who is now the head of the Cato Institute, the former Charles Koch Foundation, hadn't given him $500,000, $500,000 to him and the university to hire him, to create the seats for him to teach Ayn Rand studies, to teach Atlas Shrugged. So it's fairly obvious, A, that this has nothing to do with Democrats showing up, and B, it's really not a David versus Goliath story as much as the media loves that. Dave Bratt only spent $200,000. Yeah, but, how many millions did the Koch brothers spend to get Laura Ingraham and Mark Levin to hammer on this to the exclusion of anything else?